Deshaun Watson, before getting injured, was playing quite literally like the worst quarterback of the millennium. Watson went down, of course, against the Bengals with an Achilles rupture that ended his historically bad season, and in all likelihood ended his cursed tenure with the Browns. While the Browns are no longer boxed in by the pressure to play Watson and try to get any sort of return on their investment, they are still beholden to his massive guaranteed contract, which is going to weigh them down for the next couple of years. $72.9 million cap hits for Watson the next 2 seasons, which trails only Dak Prescott in 2025 and Lamar Jackson in 2026. And if Cleveland cuts him, they've got a dead cap hit of $172 million in 2025, which would leave them with no money to pay anyone besides a kicker, a long snapper, and probably Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach. Their only real out at this point is if Watson medically retires, and even that doesn't completely free them. All in all, it's the worst trade and the worst contract we have ever seen on multiple levels, but the Browns can start preparing for life after Deshaun Watson, even as his contract looms overhead. No, it's not ironic that the only contract in NFL history that cannot be massaged for cap space is Watson's.
On the advice of my lawyer, I assert my rights under the Fifth Amendment.
It's just sad. Deshaun Watson, in his 7th NFL season, was playing at a historically bad level. I really don't know if we have ever seen a quarterback play as good as he did early in his career and then regress so significantly prior to becoming a decrepit old QB or suffer a career-altering injury. I kind of think if we would have given the Broncos practice squad receiver Kendall Hinton 2 weeks to prepare, he would have gotten more out of his arm than Watson this season. Now, I've discussed all of the terrible Watson allegations in great detail on this channel, and I do not want to dive into that again today. Instead, I want to reveal how Watson turned into the worst quarterback in the league and show you some alarming play and stats that quite frankly baffled me. Most of the info in this episode was gathered prior to Watson's final game, and to his credit, his 15 completions for 128 yards was his most efficient game of the year. But even if you adjust his numbers with his final outing, the mean does not move significantly in the right direction. How bad he was playing will make you believe this injury was actually merciful for the Browns and the rest of their season. Let's go, let's just normal That's Good Sports into Deshaun Watson. To make sure your team never trades for Deshaun Watson, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Today's episode is sponsored by Underdog. That's right, baby. Thank you guys so much for showing up last week and helping with the charity fundraiser that Underdog sponsored with the $10,000 donation. This week, I am making these picks for my pick'em entry. If you want to play Underdog along with me, use my code THATSGOOD when you sign up. And don't forget, if we get 10,000 signups at Underdog, they owe me $1 million. We are over a quarter of the way there, so I believe we can do it, but I need your help. Underdog, sponsoring today's show. Link below. Code DO IT. Deshaun Watson's vile performance this year and his underwhelming performance the previous 2 years almost makes us forget what a revelation he was in Houston. Watson's career ended at Clemson on the highest possible note. He threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Hunter Renfrow with 1 second left on the clock to beat Alabama in the 2016 National Championship game. Hunter Renfrow, currently being unemployed, is also a great unsolved mystery right now in the NFL. But I digress. That game made Watson a lock to go early in the first round of the 2017 NFL Draft, and he went off the board at the 12th overall pick. 10 picks after Mitchell Kisson, Titties Trubisky, and 2 after Patty Mahomes. The Houston Texans were trying to recover from a pretty awful contract that they handed out to Brock Osweiler following Brock's 7-game stretch with the Broncos when he held down the fort for Peyton Manning in 2015 before the Sheriff returned to win Super Bowl fede. Watson threw just 204 passes his rookie season before a season-ending injury, which was really unfortunate because he had 2 games with 4 TD passes, another game with 5, and he was on pace for a 40-touchdown season, which would have shattered the rookie record. Now, he cooled off a little bit statistically speaking his second year in Houston, throwing 26 TDs and rushing for 5, but the Texans won the AFC South and ran into a red-hot Colts team in the wild card who shut them down at home. In 2019, the Texans repeated as AFC South champs. Watson combined for 33 touchdowns and 15 starts, and he got his first playoff win in the wild card at home against Josh Allen and the upstart Bills. Really an insane game that's been mostly forgotten to time. There was a bizarre penalty called in that game that screwed the Bills, but a big reason we forget about that game is the next week, it got even crazier. Watson's Texans went into Arrowhead, amassed a 24-point lead in the second quarter, and somehow blew it before halftime, eventually losing by 20 points. An ill-timed fake punt ring a bell? A terribly executed, ill-timed fake punt ring any fucking bells?
Hamlin is stopped short.
Now that game really sent the organization into a tailspin, and in 2020 they managed only 4 wins in spite of an incredible statistical season by Watson. In year 4, he led the NFL with 4,800 yards and 8.9 yards per attempt combined for 36 TDs and was picked off just 7 times. And that was after losing wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. That was really one of the all-time what the fuck seasons in NFL history, and it made sense that Watson wanted out of Houston after that debacle. Hell, JJ Watt wanted out. He was done with Houston. And we were given this memory, walking off the field together, with most of us knowing this was the last time we'd see them on the same team. JJ Watt, of course, ended up with the Arizona Cardinals, where his team had inexplicably sent DeAndre Hopkins. Deshaun Watson, forcing his way out, had numerous teams who were lining up for his services. A huge trade market was emerging as Watson refused to report to the Texans, and then 22 lawsuits happened, right? Watson never took a snap in the year 2021. The allegations got really disturbing, and we were starting to wonder if he would ever play football again. Who would take a chance on this creep? Surely it would be a low-risk contract if anybody did take a chance on this creep. Enter the Browns, the creepiest of creeps. Cleveland jettisoned Baker Mayfield, who won the only playoff game since the Browns returned to Cleveland in 1999, and the team sent 3 first-rounders plus 3 mid-round picks to the Texans for Deshaun Watson and inked him to the largest fully guaranteed contract in NFL history. 5 years, $230 million. Yes, the National Football League, where you can be outed as a malicious sex pervert and then rewarded with the most handsome and secure deal anyone in the sport has ever seen. It's the most soulless sports move I've ever witnessed. Now, after an 11-game suspension from those allegations, Watson finally took the field for the Browns in 2022, played some shockingly mediocre football, and followed it up with a 5-1 record with middling numbers in 2023 before breaking a bone in his throwing shoulder that ended his season. Through 2 seasons in Cleveland, the trade already looked like an unmitigated disaster. Then, we really found out how good that Browns team was. This is why there's no real excuse for how bad Watson's play currently is. The 2023 Browns won 11 games, despite being forced to start 5 different QBs. They really hit their stride in the last 6 games when they called up Joseph Flacco from his couch, and the offense totally came alive. Flacco won 4 of his 5 starts. The team hit at least 30 points in 3 of those games, and guys like tight end David Njoku, receiver Elijah Moore, and Amari Cooper all ended the year with career highs in yards. Keep in mind, this was all without Nick Chubb in the backfield, so we can't even point to Flacco and the offense having his production over this current 2024 offense. And Kevin Stefanski won his 2nd Coach of the Year for his job with this team, and of course the irony of the Browns' demise was in the playoffs, they were ousted by the Houston Texans, the team they had inadvertently helped rebuild when they sent a king's ransom to acquire Watson, who wasn't even on the field in the wild card round. Exit Joe Flacco. Despite his late career renaissance and huge numbers, someone calling the shots in Cleveland decided that not only was he not going to start in 2024, he wasn't even going to be on the roster. And no one knows why, but I think it's fair to speculate that Watson might have felt threatened, or the man signing his checks might have felt threatened by the fact that a better, much cheaper quarterback would be breathing down his neck all season. God forbid Deshaun Watson knows what it feels like to be in an uncomfortable and unwanted situation. Joe Flacco moved on to Indy, took over after Anthony Richardson's injury, and has looked pretty damn close to what we saw last season on a less talented offense. So how bad is Deshaun Watson right now? Well, if you watch him, you know it's pretty bad. Austin Gale of The Ringer published a really good article highlighting 12 key stats that confirm what our eyes have been telling us. 2024 Deshaun Watson is not just bad, he's having one of the worst quarterback seasons of all time. And I wanted to get into a few of those numbers and break down the absolute train wreck of a year he's having. Let's start here, because this is a sad one. When a 34-year-old veteran safety becomes as productive offensively as your star quarterback, alarm bells ring. Safety Rodney McLeod Jr., with 2 defensive touchdowns this season, has matched Watson's touchdown output over the last 3 games. Watson, paid to ignite the Browns' offense, has been as ineffective as a backup safety in recent weeks. The only thing he ignited was the fire that burned Cleveland's offense to the fucking ground. And unlike the Detroit Lions, I cannot see this team rising from the ashes. Cleveland's offensive line is riddled with injuries, including key starters Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills Jr., but even accounting for those absences, Watson has exacerbated the problem, with a league-high 31 sacks taken, 11 more than the next closest QB. Watson has been slow to process defenses and holds onto the ball far too long. He's like a predatory version of Russell Wilson, but unlike Russ, he sucks in the red zone. He sucks between the 20s. He sucks on the sideline. He sucks in the locker room, and I'm assuming he sucks at home when he's sitting on his fucking couch. If Watson is failing anywhere else, it's also on third down, the most crucial moment in sustaining drives. The Browns are converting a historically abysmal 19% of their third downs, one of the worst percentages for any team in the past 24 years. Watson's individual performance on third down has been equally disastrous, with a drop-back success rate of just 24%, ranking dead last in the NFL. The inability to convert in these situations has crippled the Browns' offensive rhythm and contributed directly to their abysmal scoring output. For Browns fans, that means they got better production on third down from quarterbacks like Charlie Fry, Colt McCoy, Brian Hoyer, Kelly Holcomb, Brady Quinn, and even Johnny Manziel. Probably. I was too lazy to check Johnny Football's stats on third down, but it might have been better. Net yards per attempt, okay? This is a fundamental stat in evaluating quarterbacks weighing passing efficiency and sacks. Watson's NY/A of 4.2 ranks him among the bottom 1% of quarterbacks since the year 2000. The inefficiency isn't just bad for Watson, it's disastrous for the Browns. For a franchise that gave up so much in trade value and salary for Watson, his inability to move the chains in a meaningful manner totally fucks up a team's rhythm. Not only shutting down drives on offense, but putting the defense in a spot where they can't catch their breath whatsoever. By every possible metric, Watson is ranked now among the worst quarterbacks of the millennium. And keep in mind, this is the 25th year of this millennium. It's not even a new millennium anymore. His EPA per dropback of negative .26 is one of the 10 worst performances since 2000, placing him alongside QBs like Jamarcus Russell, Josh Rosen, and Kyle Bowler, some of the more spectacular busts of all time. Even more alarming, Watson's drop-back success rate of 32.7% places him firmly in the company of other quarterback failures like Blaine Gabbert and David Carr, also busts. Watson's struggles go beyond even the NFL's most notorious bust, Jamarcus Russell. In 2009, Russell posted an EPA of negative 62.8 on dropbacks through 6 games, marking a career low for one of the biggest draft disappointments in NFL history. In 2024, Watson surpassed even that with an EPA of negative 66.2.
We are talking about quarterback play that is so bad that Kevin Stefanski can't do anything. And he's taking a lot of criticism for having a simplified offense. What he's trying to do is simplify an offense down to the point where Deshaun can do something in it, and that's not possible. He can't go low enough right now.
ESPN's Bill Barnwell also dropped a pretty damning nugget, posting this: out of 566 quarterbacks since 2007, Watson ranks 558th in QBR, ESPN's metric that evaluates quarterbacks' overall performance in passing and running. His yards per dropback even worse, placing him at 565th. Most alarming, and I keep saying alarming, but the alarm bells just keep ringing more loudly, more clearly.
Trapped forever!
Is his first down rate, where Watson ranks dead last at 566th. I will also be ignoring the fact that Bo Nix is 564th on that list. Now, to be fair to Deshaun Watson, statistically speaking, he is the only quarterback in the NFL currently to have thrown a touchdown pass after being accused of more than 20 varying degrees of sexual misconduct. No other quarterback's done that. Not a single one. So, the whole Browns offense has taken a huge nosedive. I mentioned that they scored 30 or more points in 3 of Flacco's 5 starts last season. Now they have yet to score 20 points in each of their first 6 games. The first time a team has done that in a decade. It gets glossed over a little bit because he hasn't been a Brown since 2021, but the job Baker Mayfield is doing down in Tampa makes this all so much worse for Cleveland. Mayfield leads the NFL in touchdown passes.
Half 100 on that! Half 100!
Flacco has thrown 2 more touchdowns than Watson in 3 fewer games. Now, Deshaun Watson hasn't played good football in 4 years. He hasn't had double-digit touchdown passes or more than 6.5 yards per attempt since before Joe Biden became president. It's over. He's not coming back. And the sooner the Browns accept that, the sooner they can win back some goodwill from their fan base and dig themselves out of the deepest hole I've ever seen in the NFL.
Gets yet to try to get the ball to Judy.
Watson just stumbled, and now Watson is hurt. Oh, boy. Just an unbelievable scene. Deshaun Watson carted off the field. This was seconds ago.
So yes, it was an ugly end to an ugly situation. I've never seen fans so united in cheering a player who just got seriously injured. That's a first for me. We're not going to do an audit on how many of those fans were excited for Watson at the time of the trade and how many cheered after the injury just because he was playing poorly. And at the end of the day, it goes to show how much Watson was resented by his own fans and fans in general, which I certainly understand.
Sorry, but get better soon. He needed to go.
It's over, though. That's all that matters. And while the Russell Wilson trade wasn't nearly as disastrous, I think Denver starting this year 4-3 with a record number of dead cap proves that a bad contract isn't necessarily a death sentence. Hell, it's not even a life sentence if you can find cheap talent and coach it up, which Kevin Stefanski is capable of, even though he relinquished play calling duties to Ken Dorsey. What the hell's going on there? I don't know. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here on YouTube. I hope if you made it this far and you haven't subscribed, you go, you know what? That wasn't a terrible video. Maybe I will subscribe here. Maybe the next video will be even better. Or have I already peaked?